The plight of Soviet POWs during WWII is a harrowing yet powerful chapter in history. Let's break down their experiences and the unyielding dignity they maintained, even under the most horrific circumstances. 1. Initial capture and conditions in German camps. Following the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union in June 1941, Operation Barbarossa, the German military captured millions of Soviet soldiers in a matter of months. Unlike Western POWs, Soviet soldiers were not protected by the Geneva Convention, largely due to the Nazi ideology that viewed Slavs as Untermensch, subhuman. As a result, the captured soldiers faced extreme brutality from the outset. Transportation. Soviet POWs were often transported in open freight cars, exposed to the elements, sometimes without food or water for days. Camps. Upon arrival in German POW camps, stalags, conditions were appalling. The prisoners were subjected to overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and lack of shelter. Many camps didn't even have barracks initially, and Soviet POWs were forced to live in the open in barbed wire enclosures. Starvation. Food rations were scarce and intentionally designed to starve the prisoners. Most POWs received only a few hundred calories per day, leading to rapid malnutrition and death. 2. Extermination by labor and starvation. Nazi policy toward Soviet POWs was not just one of neglect, but of deliberate extermination. Hitler viewed them as part of the racial war against the Slavic peoples, and the goal was to eliminate them through a combination of starvation, forced labor, and outright murder. Forced labor. Many Soviet POWs were sent to work in German factories, construction sites, and even in fields, often until they died of exhaustion or starvation. Those who couldn't keep up were summarily executed. Starvation as a weapon. Nazi officials saw food as a weapon. They believed that Soviet POWs didn't deserve to live and could be disposed of through starvation, which fit within their broader plan of depopulating Soviet territories to make way for German settlers. Of the 5.7 million Soviet soldiers captured by the Germans, about 3.3 million perished, an astronomical death toll compared to the treatment of other POWs in the war. 3. Resistance in the camps. Despite the overwhelming odds, many Soviet POWs refused to surrender their spirit or humanity. This resistance took several forms. Underground resistance. Within some POW camps, secret groups formed to organize resistance efforts. They might gather intelligence, sabotage work they were forced to perform, or prepare escape plans. Some Soviet officers managed to maintain military discipline in the camps, continuing to resist any collaboration with the Germans. Acts of defiance. Refusing to cooperate with their captors was a dangerous but courageous form of defiance. Even when starvation loomed, many POWs refused to assist the Nazis in their war efforts, sabotaging tasks or performing them poorly to undermine the Germans. Cultural and spiritual resistance. Soviet POWs would often come together in small groups to sing songs, tell stories, or recite poetry. These acts helped maintain morale and a sense of identity in the face of overwhelming dehumanization. 4. Escapes and joining the partisans. Despite the heavy surveillance and near impossible odds, thousands of Soviet POWs managed to escape from German camps. Some escaped by digging tunnels, bribing guards, or seizing opportunities during forced labor outside the camps. Once free, many of these escapees joined partisan groups that were waging guerrilla warfare against the Nazis. Joining partisan movements. In the forests of Eastern Europe, Soviet POWs became a critical part of the resistance. They used their military training to help organize and strengthen the partisan groups, continuing the fight against the Axis even after their capture. Escape attempts. While escape attempts were often met with brutal reprisals, for every escapee dozens might be executed as punishment, these efforts still took place. The will to fight and resist, even after enduring so much suffering, speaks volumes about the determination of these men. 5. The return home, Soviet repression. Tragically, even after surviving such horrific conditions, many Soviet POWs faced suspicion and persecution upon their return home. Stalin's regime viewed Soviet soldiers who had been captured by the enemy as traitors, believing that a true Soviet soldier would have fought to the death rather than allow himself to be captured. Interrogation and gulags. Many returning POWs were interrogated by Soviet authorities, accused of collaboration with the Nazis, and sent to labor camps, gulags, in Siberia. In Stalin's paranoid state, the returning POWs were seen as potential threats to the regime, and countless survivors of German POW camps ended up dying in Soviet labor camps. Stigma and isolation. For those who were not imprisoned, life after the war was still filled with hardship. They were often stigmatized and ostracized, finding it difficult to reintegrate into Soviet society. The horrors they endured during the war were compounded by the rejection they faced at home. 6. Legacy of Soviet POWs. The story of Soviet POWs during WWII is not widely known, partly because of the Soviet government's reluctance to highlight the plight of these soldiers. Only in recent decades has more attention been given to their suffering and resilience. Their legacy is one of courage in the face of unimaginable suffering. The survival of so many Soviet POWs, despite the calculated efforts of the Nazis to exterminate them, is a testament to the unbroken human spirit. Their quiet acts of defiance, their determination to hold on to their humanity, and their will to fight on, whether through resistance or simply through survival, deserve recognition. For your channel, you could explore the personal stories of individual Soviet POWs, showcasing how they resisted despair through courage and resilience. You could also discuss how their post-war treatment by the Soviet government adds another layer of tragedy to their already harrowing story, providing a unique perspective on both Soviet and Nazi war policies. Would you want to focus on a particular event or individual story for deeper analysis? Thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts on the events covered in this video, please feel free to share them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more informative content and check out my next video, where I'll dive deeper into one of these topics.